Think of the following scenario, right? You've been on a road trip with a traditional GPS, let's say, right? For sure, it will get you there, but we cannot deny it's rigid with limited options. Now, imagine you have an AI-powered navigation system that learns from traffic patterns, from accidents, and even your preferences when it comes to scenic routes, let's say. That's the power of Gen AI in intelligent automation. And we do need to understand why its role is crucial. Because business landscapes are no longer static. Customer expectations, regulations, data streams, everything is constantly evolving. So traditional automation struggles to adapt, leading to inefficiency. Whenever we look at Gen AI with its adaptive algorithms that can learn from new data, from new situations, we are actually continuously refining automation for optimal performance. So it's not about automating processes with Gen AI, it's more about empowering them with intelligence and adaptability. I always find myself thinking about us humans and our capacity to think, learn, and adapt. With Gen AI, that is exactly what automation solutions will be able to do as well. So let's take it one by one. In general, when we talk about automation solutions, they are programmed for specific tasks and processes. Gen AI is able to break free from that rigidity because its adaptive algorithms actually allows it to continuously learn from the experience. To give you an example, if you look at an, let's say, automation system filtering loan applications, it will not only be able to process the applications, but it will also learn from successful and rejected ones, and it will constantly refine its approach for a better decision making. It's also about the vast amount of data analysis, right? We can anticipate with Gen AI potential issues or opportunities. If you think about an inventory management system with Gen AI, it can predict stock shortages based on historical data. It can actually look at sales trends and make sure that you are actually preventing stockouts. So it's a combination of all of this because data is just numbers without the context, and Gen AI will be able to bridge this gap. I'm always coming back to us as humans because we as humans, we are always embracing lifelong learning concepts. So the same automation systems need to do because they need to thrive in a world where change is the only constant. So continuous learning is essential for both, for us and for the automation systems. As we learn from our experiences and adapt to new situations and refine our skills, Gen AI brings the same power to the automation. So if you were to think about the fact that right now traditional automation systems kind of operate in isolation, following predefined rules. They struggle to adapt when circumstances changes. Gen AI, however, integrates self-learning loops, fostering a more dynamic environment within the automation system itself. To make it more practical, imagine a child learning to ride a bike, right? They fall, they analyze what went wrong, the feedback, and adjust their approach. They are learning. Gen AI operates similarly. So as the system encounters new situations, it receives real-time feedback on the outcome. This feedback loop allows it to actually analyze its performance and adjust its processes for the next time. So we're always talking about how we can actually leverage this constant feedback and adaptation for continuous improvement. And we refer to everything that's dynamic. The cyber threats are constantly evolving, the customer demand is constantly evolving, and learning is also constantly evolving. But to be able to actually foster continuous learning, Gen AI is going to be the, let's say, lever that we're using to empower automation systems to become more adaptable, more resilient, and more valuable in a world that's actually defined by change. context is everything. So especially when it comes to decision making, and the fact that Gen AI has the capability to comprehend context nuances, it's like having a sixth sense that is helping automation systems to make more informed decisions. Let's think of an automated pricing system. Traditional systems will probably just adjust prices based on historical trends. Gen AI, however, can factor in external factors like news articles, social media sentiments before actually suggesting a change in price. So this results in a more strategic and market responsive pricing decisions. And not to forget the fact that human language is full of ambiguity. So Gen AI can easily tackle this challenge because if we think of another example like an automated legal document review system, you are going to see that a lot of systems struggle with sarcasm, figurative language, but with Gen AI, with the fact that it can have contextual understanding, it can analyze the surrounding texts, legal precedents, and it can actually interpret the true meaning, leading to a more accurate document review. So these are just a few examples, but it does show the fact that Gen AI has a potential to transform automation across industries by using contextual understanding. So I do believe it's elevating automation from data processing to meaning making. From my perspective, it's not about one versus the other. It's about finding the right balance. Gen AI has the potential to augment human capabilities, making us more productive and more efficient. However, it's essential to remember the fact that human expertise is irreplaceable. So I do believe it's like a power couple, if we were to put it like that. Humans excel at creativity, strategic thinking, complex problem solving. Gen AI, with its data crunching abilities, can free us from all of the repetitive tasks and allow us to focus on unique strengths that will lead to a more creative and innovative working environment. So Gen AI, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution because it can integrate seamlessly within existing workflows, enhancing their capabilities without requiring a complete, let's say, redo. And this smooth transitions allows humans to actually move towards more valuable human time. So, of course, we know that there are going to be disruption, but the key is to embrace Gen AI as a partner, not a competitor, because we will need to upskill our workforce and focusing on human strength and leverage Gen AI capabilities to actually be able to create a future where we increase productivity, we do better decision making, and we actually have a more empowered human workforce. Because Gen AI is a very powerful tool, like any powerful tool, it comes with its own set of risks. And probably one that there is the shadow of bias. You're always going to hear about it because Gen AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on. So biased data will lead to biased decisions, potentially actually perpetuating, let's say, discrimination or unfair practices. So as any other risk, this one can be mitigated. And it's all about how do you train the data sets and you ensure that they are diverse and inclusive. And it will reduce the risk of bias actually creeping into the algorithm. But it's not just about solely relying on Gen AI for decision making, it's implementing a human oversight mechanism to make sure that you're actually reviewing the key decisions and be able to proactively identify potential bias. And even if, let's say, bias is one of the top risks, another one that comes to my mind is the fact that we're talking about, okay, sometimes Gen AI is viewed as a black box. People don't necessarily understand how it arrives to its conclusions. So this lacks transparency and it also erodes trust. So to be able to address this, it is very important to invest in explainable AI that will be able to give a little bit of light on how Gen AI reasons throughout the process. And it will also allow you to understand how the system make a particular decision and being able to identify potential flaws. And these are the two ones that exist and are there. And there are also others, but if you're able to actually get into the, let's say, a comprehensive approach and being able to establish a clear governance framework and continuously monitor your Gen AI systems, this should be easily mitigated. And remember, Gen AI is a tool. And like any tool, it depends on how we use it. So with the responsible and proactive approach, Gen AI can actually be a force for good, driving innovation, efficiency, and progress. The first that comes to my mind is one that we did together with a healthcare provider. We actually used Gen AI to automate their insurance claim processing. The results, it was a streamlined process with unexpected benefits. Gen AI not only accelerated the claim processing, but also was able to identify hidden patterns in denied claims. So it did allow the provider to proactively address issues, saving money and frustration for everyone that was involved. But this was not a journey without challenges. So initially, we struggled with the fact that complex medical jargon was used in those claim documents, right? So it was like asking a tourist to navigate through a legal document or something similar to that. So we actually leveraged the power of collaboration. We partnered with medical professionals that acted as translators, helping Gen AI to understand the nuances of medical language. We also implemented a system of continuous refinement and validation for the AI models because we wanted to make sure that this remains accurate and relevant over time. So for me, this experience highlights the importance of being agile when you actually develop Gen AI implementations. So you need to adapt an iterative approach where you constantly test, refine, and improve Gen AI systems based on real-world data. And it's also about fostering a closer collaboration between data scientists, but also domain experts, because you're bridging a gap between technical expertise and real-world application. So the road of innovation is paved with challenges, but these are just challenges. They aren't roadblocks. They're just the stepping stones. Personally, I'm looking forward to the networking opportunities and the insightful conversations with the other industry leaders. I have this image of the room buzzing with ideas. I'm eager to connect with the other leaders in the field, share our experiences when it comes to Gen AI implementation, and learn from our successes and our failures. Because this is rapidly evolving and you don't have time to be updated all of the time. So being able to actually exchange ideas with other people is like a breath of fresh air. So I do believe all of the presentations are going to be packed with valuable information, but the overall event is going to ignite the let's say the passion, the energy, and everything else. I often leave these type of events with a notebook that just has new ideas and new approaches that I cannot wait to test and implement in my own work.